This episode of the Local Hustlers podcast is brought to you by Audible. If you're listening to this podcast right now, then I'm going to assume that you would also enjoy listening to audiobooks. Whether you're interested in business, history, comedy, science fiction, or romance, Audible has thousands of titles for you to choose from. We want you to try out Audible for free, so if you head to our link, you'll get a 30-day free trial and a free book. So go to audibletrial.com/localhustlerspodcast to redeem your trial today. Again, that's audible, AUDIBLE, trial.com/localhustlerspodcast.
You're listening to the Local Hustlers Podcast, your go-to source for connecting with small businesses and entrepreneurs in the East Valley. Get ready to be inspired by local entrepreneurs as they share their stories, mindset, best tips, and advice. And now, your co-hosts, Dallin and Eric Huso.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Local Hustlers Podcast. This week, we're super excited to be here with Maria Bernard with Deco Ink Designs. Yeah. How's it going?
Good. Long day, but so good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking time out of the long, busy day to come talk to us today.
Yeah.
Take a couple minutes before we jump into the business and give us a little background on your life.
Yeah, for sure. So, I say I'm an Arizona native just because, I literally had no memory of Mexico because I was brought here at a very young age of 2.5. My parents actually were kind of forced due to some family trauma, were forced to cross the border illegally. And so most of my life I spent, living in a kind of very fearful world because we were immigrants and we were illegal. And, my parents knew that and we knew that. And, so growing up in Arizona, it was a pleasure. It's been my home since I could remember, right? But it was also very, very fearful to have to live with that most of my life. And then it wasn't very apparent or noticeable for me. It didn't hit me until I got to high school. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make my parents proud. I'm going to get us out of this. No more paycheck to paycheck, right? I'm going to go to school, go to college. And I had great teachers, the best math teachers in the world. And so they actually were the ones that inspired me to really work hard to get to college. And so it didn't hit me that I was an illegal immigrant until I was denied my full ride ASU scholarship. And then I was denied my full ride to Chandler Gilmore Community College. And then I was like, great, what am I going to do with my life? And then at the time there was a Prop 303 that was not counting the fact that I was a resident of Arizona because I was an illegal immigrant. So if I wanted to go to college, I'd pay triple tuition, which obviously I can't afford. I can't even get a job. I don't have a social security number, right? So lots of things happened within that time frame. And then I got married to my high school sweetheart at 18. And then he went off to college and, we had to deal with immigration lawyers and all that stuff. And long story short, I ended up having to do self-deportation so that I would not be charged thousands of dollars for the illegal act that I did at 2.5 years old. And so I just decided, you know what, I'd rather not pay all that money. I would rather have that money go to school, right, and education. So I'm like, let me just go back to my hometown, which I didn't know anything about. But again, my family left because there was some family drama and they were forced to leave. But we have a lot of family. I mean, my mom's side of the family is very well off. There's doctors, there's dentists, there's lots of very well off people. My dad's side of the family are also well off. They own businesses, they're entrepreneurs. But at the time when my parents left, they were not doing very well. But I had people to go back to. So, the lawyer, my husband was still in Missouri. He played Truman State University. He was on a full ride scholarship doing football there. And we did a whole year of international long distance, which at the time had MySpace. So we were able to connect through MySpace. But yeah, the lawyer said I would be there a year to 3 years. It ended up being a year. I actually landed foot back in U.S. soil when Obama became president in 2008, November 4th. One of those days, November 4th, 2018 or something like that. But I was there for a total of about 11 months. It was the best time of my life. I will say that I got to meet all of my relatives I had never met before, all the people that had been trying to come to the U.S. but couldn't because after 9/11, things got really difficult for any type of immigration or any people to come over. So even though they were doing well off and wanted to come and get a visa, they couldn't. So it was the first time I ever met like my grandma and a lot of people. So it was a good time. But then I came back, and I remember enrolling myself at Chandler Gilbert Community College.
Without a scholarship?
What was that?
Without a scholarship?
Yep.
Okay.
Just paying on my own. But because I was coming back as a married individual, no longer with my parents, and not living with my spouse, it allowed me to apply for FAFSA. So, essentially, I was like this poor person that didn't have anywhere to live, right? So, FAFSA totally helped. So I got now that I was a resident of the United States of America, and I wasn't a resident of Arizona, so like, even though I lived here my whole life, they still charged me outside tuition, like out-of-state tuition. But that was like no biggie, right? Compared to 3 times the amount I was going to pay.
Right.
Yeah, so then I went through college. I went to ASU. I was inspired by math teachers like I had mentioned before. So I wanted to be a high school math teacher for the rest of my life and retire. And so it's just funny how like this is kind of how my story begins with like the entrepreneur stuff. Let's see. I graduated in 2013 from ASU, and I got pregnant actually my last year, and my husband had already came back to Arizona. He had already graduated Truman State University, so we were living in an apartment. I got pregnant, and then I was like, great, I don't know how I'm going to finish this school year. So I ended up finishing early. So I got a minor in math and a major in education, but I wasn't able to finish like the full secondary ed education, like fully certified teaching, even though I did exactly what everybody did, but I just didn't do the student teaching part. So when I left ASU and graduated, I had a 6-month-old. My husband was going through a master's program, and we had like no money. So for me to be a teacher, not certified, and have to pay for certification, it was just a little difficult. I found a way out though. I was working at Bank of America through college at a customer service phone call center. And so that's where I stayed after I graduated ASU. But then I got connected with a charter school and I have a lot of things to say about charter schools because that's where I actually taught. I got connected through a cousin who was working in a school district who knew of a principal that was hiring, but they were hiring at a charter school. So I took the job. It was a middle school math teacher. Loved the students. It was an amazing experience. I think I want to eventually work with young women again within those ages, 13 to 18. You know, I think that women and in those ages like need a lot of reinforcement, a lot of encouragement, a lot of embracement of like who they are. But anyways, so I taught for a year, and that charter school, man, okay, I'm not going to say much about it, but all I'm going to say, if anybody's listening and they have kids at any school, right? It could happen at a public school. Charter schools, they say they have a little more like stipulations, they have more enforcement, but they kind of do, but they kind of can get away with it more because it's their own kind of enforcement. So it just didn't go well, to say the least. And I left that school because I got pregnant with my daughter, and I had finished a whole school year. Was hoping to go back a second year because, again, I love the students, even though the school was kind of a wreck. But they wanted me back right in August, and I had my daughter in June. And so since she was a preemie and she was in the NICU, I couldn't really go back right away. But I ended up, which, by the way, I forgot to tell parents, go volunteer at the school your kids are at, because that's important for you to kind of gauge what kind of school it is. But I ended up not going back, and it was like probably the toughest time of my life because I was hit with postpartum depression. I didn't go back to teaching, which was my like dream, right? I was going to teach for the rest of my life. This is what I was going to do. And then my husband was going, he was the only one kind of bringing in the income, and he was in his last year of his master's program to become a high school or a school psychologist. And so it kind of just spiraled from there. I stayed home with my kids for 8 months. Kudos to all the stay-at-home moms or parents that do it every day, because oh my goodness, it is a job times 10. And as much as I know that my kids needed me home, and as much as like there really was no income to like pay for daycare or anything like that, it was tough, and I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed the fact that I was there, but there was something missing. And I think it was just the fact that I've always been a goal getter, and like the fact that I had no goal to go to, you know. And as a mom, I think having to take care of kids, change diapers all day, nurse my child, and like constantly keep their brains active, it was just a really tough thing, because you kind of lose sight of who you are, and you forget that old Maria, right? The one that didn't have kids, the one, what did she like to do kind of thing. So my friend recommended I do calligraphy, because in high school, I was that girl who would write everybody's name all pretty, and I would, you know, go around and color palm trees and do all these things. And so we actually were living with her at the time, because again, we were going through a lot of heartache, and my husband was the only one bringing in income. And so we had to live with her at the time. And she had a beautiful home in Seville, in Gilbert, and she's single, so we're like, yay, we got this beautiful home with their 2 kids, you know, it's not ours, but hey. And so it was in that house, in that office, where it all started. I started doing calligraphy. I found, she actually tagged me on Instagram, the power of Instagram and social media, right? She tagged me on a account called the Hand Lettered ABCs, and it was 3 women who were handling the account. And they would post calligraphy, this beautiful calligraphy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. It looks so cool. So every night when my husband would get home, eventually when I like finally ordered the pens on Amazon, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I just hand over the kids, and I'm like, hey, I'll be in the office if you need anything. If the baby needs to nurse, come get me. Otherwise, like, I'll be there for hours. And I was there for like 4 to 6 hours some night. Like, it was just so soothing. It was like, calligraphy really makes you slow down. Like, it literally makes you slow down, because if you go through it too fast, you're not going to be able to create the strokes that you want and create the pretty writing, right? So it was definitely a good soothing technique. And then eventually I did go back to work. I went back to Bank of America, and ended up being there for graveyard shift. Like, I worked nights, and it was terrible, because why was I thinking, because we were trying to save money, and so we're like, no daycare, right? So my husband goes to work in the morning, and then I go to work at night, but then I forgot about me, okay, I still have to wake up with the kids, right? So I had like little or no sleep. It was like the worst time of my life, because I was trying to juggle everything, work, kids, and then self-care, and it was just very apparent that I couldn't take care of myself. But during that time, a friend of mine who I was working right next to, you know, you have your set. If you worked at a call center before, you have your little sets over your ear, and you're waiting for a phone call to come in. Well, in between phone calls, a friend of mine saw me doing calligraphy, because I would just take my little journal everywhere. And she's like, did you know there's a place called the Tech Shop where you could turn your calligraphy into a laser cut? And I was like, what? What's that? Like, what are you talking about? And so then she told me about the Tech Shop. It was in downtown Chandler, and unfortunately, there's no tech shops around anymore, but it's a place where literally lots of creatives and small business owners would go and use all of their industrial machinery. So it was like sewing machines, woodworking, all that stuff, right? You can make t-shirts, you can make 3D objects. And so initially I was like super worried to walk in, because I had drove by there several times after she told me about it. And then a friend of mine was getting married and had requested for me to do something for her. So I was like, okay, now I need to really go to the tech shop and find out what I could do with my calligraphy, right? So then I finally walked in, because I was so scared. There was a lot of men. Nothing towards you men, right? But like, when you're the only woman in a room, since I had kind of already been the only woman in a room going through ASU, being a minor in math, all my classes were with all these men who were engineers and, it was just very intimidating sometimes. And so I finally just walked in and I took a class on how to use the laser. And it was just me, the only woman, with like 5 other men.
Yeah.
And I remember the instructor was very, very rude. I left crying, in fact, because he was talking about X, Y, and Z. And like, you wouldn't know this, he'd tell me. And I'm like, oh, that's very rude that he's like assuming that just because I'm the girl, like I wouldn't know math. But I perfectly did. Like I knew exactly what he was talking about. And so I left crying because at the end of that class, we had to like create something. And obviously I didn't get it right away. Not because I was incompetent, but because the way I learn, I have to do over and over again, or I have to practice. And so anyways, I was like, I'm never going to go back to the tech shop. And my husband's like, no, it's okay. You could do it. And so I got over that hump and I burned through so much cardboard. I burned through so much wood and several times caught the laser on fire. So I had a lot of failures. There was like lots of times that I was like, wait, why am I doing this? And I was like, oh wait, it's cool. I really want to do this. So my very first laser cut was my sister-in-law's name, Sarah. And I laser cut her name out of cardboard. And then after that, when I got a hang of it, I was like, cool, I'm going to do this. And so I started selling. I opened up an Etsy account, and it was funny because I was like, like I need an EIN. Like I need, the entrepreneur, what's it called? Is it employer
identification number?
Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. So I actually walked into Bank of America because I bank with them and I had worked with them and all my accounts were with them. So I was like, hey, I'm just here to open up an account so that all the funds go into one, account for my business stuff. I just wanted to keep my business stuff separate. Funny enough, like I literally left there an hour later. I spoke to a business banker and I had my LLC that day. He like submitted all the paperwork for me. Didn't think I was going to become an LLC. I was just trying to get like a separate account. And I knew in the back of my mind I was going to eventually need that EIN that Etsy was asking for. But I was just like, oh, well, as long as I have like an account that things deposit to. Well, I ended up leaving as a LLC and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this. So as time went on, like this business was developing. I was still working at Bank of America, no longer graveyard shift. I was in the mornings. But yeah, it was like becoming a business, and I was like, hold on, what is happening right now, right? Like I was going to the tech shop very often. I was fulfilling orders now on Etsy, laser cut, for nursery names, laser cut, my hand lettered laser cuts, right? So it was fun, and I learned a lot during that time, and it was great because I had people that were working there to help me through any like failures with the laser. Because had I just said, oh, I'm going to start a business and get a laser, like, I don't know if that would have worked out because I had no way to, like, learn the laser or, like, be comfortable with it. Right. So, anyways, I was there for about a year, and then they went bankrupt and closed their doors without telling anybody. So, one day I get off of work at Bank of America, right, and I'm going to my second, hustling job, right, my little side biz, and I go to open the door at the tech shop, and I remember like the parking lot was dead, and I was like, no one's here, what happened? So I'm like, I'm gonna get the laser all to myself, like I won't have to worry about the time limit. And so I try to open the door, and then it says like, we are no longer open for business. And I was like, wait a second, I have some of my materials in there, like I have my wood in there, like what are you talking about, right? Like I have orders to fulfill on Etsy.
Yeah. And
so I remember going to work the next day and saying like, oh, I guess, I just got to climb the ladder here at Bank of America now. Because even though, yes, I was already, taking on new jobs at Bank of America, and I could see myself becoming a manager, within the near 2 years or so, I knew that my business was kind of taking off faster than I wanted it to. So I was like, it's okay. I'll just try and focus more on my side business. Hopefully it becomes a business. And so I was going to give up that next day, and I was like, well, I don't have a laser. I looked up how much they were. They were like $20,000+ each. And then I was trying to figure out what was going to happen to all the industrial machines at the tech shop, and I couldn't get access to that. So Earlier that year, so that happened in 2017, November 2017, Tech Shop closed. Earlier that year, April of 2017, my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. And he was the tech guy. If you walked into his house, there'd be computers literally all over the place. He was a wizard. Like, he could fix your computer in no time. He could tell you what was wrong. He could take it apart, put it back together in like perfect condition. Like, he was a great guy. He actually was a nurse most of his life. He worked kind of like developing programs, like technology to better service, right, hospitals and nurses. And so anyways, he passed away unexpectedly. And right before he passed away, he had actually gifted me an iPad. It wasn't an iPad, but it was like one of those things where like you could write and then it would like transfer to a computer and then I could vectorize it. Instead of what I was normally doing to fulfill my Etsy orders was I would literally write the name on a piece of paper, scan it in, bring it in as a PNG or a JPEG, and then vectorize it. And I'd spend hours trying to like literally make this name work and laser cut into an actual object. And so when he gave me that, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I can now like directly go to a computer and have it already ready to be vectorized without all the scanning. So a month later, he passed away. And when we were settling everything, by November, when Tech Shop closed, my husband had already been gifted his dad's life insurance money. And so never in a million years would I have expected, A, I'd be an entrepreneur, B, I'd own my own business, and C, losing my father-in-law. But even more so, my husband saying like, I want to invest in your business. Like, what do we have to do to keep your business going, right? And I was like, what? No, you don't understand. Like, it's really expensive. And he's like, it's okay. I'll buy you a laser. I'm like, you really don't know how expensive these things are. So we looked into it together, and we, you know, after a long month of like, you know, talking to all these laser fabrication, you know, manufacturers, we decided to go with a universal laser. It was a 32-inch bed by 18 inches, and it was $23,000 after taxes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so painful to like swallow, right? But at that moment I said, okay, Maria, this was in December. My birthday's on Christmas, so he kind of like did it as a birthday gift. And I remember saying to myself, okay, like this is a very expensive investment. If we're going to do this, like I need to do this full time. So I put my 2 weeks in like December 15th, and my last day was a little bit after my birthday. And it was really weird because, again, I had worked at Bank of America for, at this time, 5 years now, you know, on and off. And so it was really weird to let go of that customer service, that like long time relationship with people I had made. And so I remember it was like January 2018, and I'm like twiddling my thumbs. I had kids, obviously, to take care of, but at the same time, I was like there, like just my kids and I were just like, I'm like, what am I going to do? I have this big laser. Okay, I know I have to fulfill these orders. Like all the orders I had to not fulfill in November, I had refunded all their money. So I really didn't have any new orders, but I'm like, what am I going to do with this laser? And I'm like, okay, just do what you know what to do, Maria. Just do it. And so my husband had actually gifted me again an iPad to go with my laser so that I could just complete the set and just do everything a lot smoother and less time. And so I opened up the Etsy account back up and I started selling items. And by like June of 2018, I had already sold over 700 orders, and I had fulfilled already 700 orders or so. And so it was doing great. And then, gosh, everything else from there is kind of like a blur because, again, this whole journey, never would I have imagined being a business owner. If someone told me 10 years ago, you're going to own your business and you're going to hire employees and give people opportunity to thrive, I would have been like, no way. Like, I'm not good at sales. Like, I'm going to be a math teacher for the rest of my life.
Right.
So it's just been a crazy journey. But like from 2018 till now, and of course COVID hit, right? And so But from 2018 till now, my business has kind of shifted a little bit, and I'm now doing primarily wedding packages. Still doing some hand lettered laser cuts for nursery names. And then I'm teaching calligraphy downtown Gilbert at Studio 223. I teach there like quarterly or so, or every other month, depending on the schedule. But yeah, that's where I am now. I don't know where I'm going yet, because again, it's just like I'm just kind of rolling with the punches. But my business has been shifting and changing as I change and as I, have different experiences. So I feel like in the next 5 years or so, I'll still be doing this. Hopefully I'll have an actual building, because I'm still in my home. And hopefully I'll have a bigger team by then. Yeah.
That's great.
My story.
It's an amazing story. So a couple questions. First, a calligraphy question. Is calligraphy a standard where everybody's calligraphy looks pretty much the same, or does every artist have their own unique style where somebody could say, oh yeah, that's Maria's work. That's her way of doing calligraphy?
Yeah, great question, actually. So there are specific styles that you learn, right? There's copperplate calligraphy, which is what I teach. And my class really focuses on learn the rules so that you can break the rules later. So yeah, actually both. So yes, there are specific styles that you can study and do. And people request that, like the very pretty fancy calligraphy that you would see on vellum paper for a king and queen, right? But from what I've experienced, as you learn calligraphy, all the calligraphers I've ever followed on Instagram, they develop their own style. So you could eventually be like, oh, that's so-and-so's calligraphy, right? I know I have a friend, her name's Courtney from They Call Me Spindles, or Spindles Co. She just recently changed her name, and I know her calligraphy the minute I see it, in any wedding or any Instagram post. So yeah, there is specific calligraphy styles, but also, developed kind that, certain artists develop into.
Excellent. And then the classes of calligraphy that you're teaching, are these individuals wanting to become professional calligraphers like yourself and create things like that?
I hope so. I hope I can inspire people to do what I do, or to do, their own creative outlet. But that question, I don't really ask like what they're hoping to do. A lot of them just want to learn how to write prettier, is what I've heard. But no, like I'm not too sure. Like I should have asked that question in my next one. But there are some calligraphers in my classes that come and just take it because they're like, hey, I actually learned online. I've never taken a class, so I'm here to do that. Yeah. So that's always nice to have other calligraphers in the class as well. But yeah, I guess it just all depends on like what they're there for. But that would be cool to find out like why they chose the class.
Awesome. Should we jump into the business a little bit?
Yeah, one more question about the calligraphy. Okay. I was just curious, when you first got started, did you notice right off the bat that you had like a natural talent for it? Because it, like someone like me, I could never do that, or it would take me a lot of practice to be decent at it, where like my sister, for example, has really good natural handwriting. So I'm wondering, did that come first? Did you notice you had a talent, or did you just, love the idea of it and did it so much that you eventually became good at it? So just kind of curious what the balance and relationship was with that.
Definitely. Another great question. So like I mentioned before, my best friend since we were 5, who I was living with at the time and had recommended calligraphy as a hobby, she knew that it was for me. Like, and she reminded me just how much joy I had when I would write people's names on their folder, right? So I would also do it at my mom's house. I'd write salt on the salt can and sugar on the can. It was just like a writer. Not a writer like writing techniques, right? But like I just loved to write. So yes, I knew, it was for me because like not only did I love it and it was able to soothe my depression, but it was easier to get through the frustration of trying to build a letter, because I knew that I could, I was a perfectionist. Like I just loved doing that beforehand. So I was like, I'm going to do it. But I have had, you're right, like someone like you maybe who isn't very patient or like doesn't have that artistic ability, right. Or maybe, everybody does, but yes, it would take you probably more practice and more patience, right, than somebody who is interested or kind of has that natural ability, yeah, to write pretty already. Yeah. But yeah.
It would take a lot of patience for me. It would take a lot of patience for me.
Do you find yourself spending more time cleaning your pool than you spend swimming in it? Then you need to get in touch with Flamingo Pools. Flamingo Pools is your go-to swimming pool maintenance and repair company in the East Valley. Whether it's weekly maintenance, repairs, green to cleans, or one-time cleanings, Flamingo Pools is there to take care of you. Here's a few things that makes Flamingo Pools stand out from the crowd. When you first sign up for service, they'll give you a free complimentary inspection of the pool to make sure everything is running smoothly. They'll also email you a service report with a picture attached after every visit so you know when your pool has been cleaned. They also offer a mineral treatment, which will keep your chemical levels down, allowing you to have a healthier bathing experience. At Flamingo Pools, they know that your pool was made to be enjoyed, so let them handle the rest. Check them out at azflamingopools.com or give them a call at 480-422-6013. Mention this podcast and get your first month of weekly maintenance free. That's azflamingopools.com and 480-422-6013. So yeah, jumping into the business. So it kind of seems like there were two phases of the business. The first part where you were going to, what was the name of the place?
Tech Shop.
Tech Shop. And it sounds like from there, or it started off as like a natural progression. Like you went to the bank and all of a sudden you came out with your LLC and EIN. So it was, at that point, was it more of just like a natural, slow flow into business? Or was there a certain time where you decided I'm doing this as a business, I'm going to take it more seriously? What was that kind of like? Yeah.
Okay, so absolutely, it was all natural. It was all God driving me towards where I am today, right? I always believe that you are exactly where you are because you're meant to be there. Right here, right now, we're meant to be here. So, definitely, it was all natural. It was just kind of happening, and I wasn't really questioning it. I was like, okay, people want to pay me for my calligraphy. Yeah. I'm doing laser cuts, right? I didn't get serious about it until I had to do taxes for the first time, and I actually had quit my job, my corporate job full time, and in 2018, I think that's when it was hitting me, like, okay, I'm doing business this way. Is this even, like, I was busting my butt off, right? Not charging what I was supposed to be. And of course, I didn't know that until the end of 2018 when I did my books. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, for how much time I put into it. I'm working for free. Yeah.
I'm getting a great service.
Literally. And, and I'm so customer service driven. Again, I worked in customer service for so many years that the customer's always right, in my opinion, and whatever the customer needs, wants, that's what I'm going to do. And so, I would bust my butt off for customers and realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm not even charging what like other competitors are charging, right? And so I started looking at competitors, and I started looking at, like, before it was just all calligraphy based. It was like nothing. I didn't even know other people did laser cuts. Like, I didn't even really look into that. Like, I was just in my own lane, having fun. It was a hobby. It was just fun. Right. But then, you do the books, you do your taxes, and you're like, oh man, like, I just invested all this money into laser and I can't make it back. Like, there's a problem, right? And so that's kind of where I shifted gears. Gotcha. And I hired a marketing company, which I can't even remember who I hired, honestly. Broadleaf. Broadleaf was their name. And then I kind of shifted a little bit off of Etsy, stopped shipping all across the world, because I was shipping all across the world. And stopped the shipping things because the shipping was getting really difficult because I was doing so many orders that when something would break, then I'd have to refund. I'd have to give the customers options, and it was just really a lot. So at the time, I started getting requests from local vendors like Bloom and Blueprint and Dang Fine Rentals and Parties on Purpose. I mean, lots of amazing local vendors that that pretty much put on your party, right? And they needed laser cuts. So as the local thing started taking off, I realized, okay, I don't have to deal with all this shipping chaos and things breaking. So I got off of Etsy altogether. And then I was just doing local stuff. So I hired someone to do my website. My website looked so different than what it does look like now. Before it was like a shop. You know, you could check out, add stuff to your cart and check out. But what I realized is people weren't really like checking out with items because like it wasn't very clear what I was doing. It wasn't very clear. My business model was not very clear. It was not clear as to what I did, right? It was calligraphy. It was pretty. I did some laser cuts. Maybe I did calligraphy like on actual mirrors or whatever. But people were just like, oh, she does calligraphy. So I was getting literally all kinds of requests. Some that I didn't really want that I still said yes to and taught me a lesson, right? And some that I ended up loving after saying yes. But again, I shifted business again. And so it's just been since realizing like, okay, I need to bring in profit. I need to like, you know, make my family proud. I need to also be able to enjoy my family without feeling like I'm working 60 hours a week. Yeah. Like there needs to be a balance, right? And so since I was always a yes girl, I still struggle. I can say no now, but it just takes me so long to say no. But yeah, I guess I keep changing things up because again, if I get to a point where I feel flustered or I feel overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, hold on, wait a second, let me see. Like I'm running this business, right? I am the person that like if I'm not well, if I'm sick, my business is not going to happen, right? And so it's just kind of been like scaling back a little bit, thinking about what's important. What am I selling? What are people coming to me for, right? I need to make that clear. And so I've been to several life coaches. Annette, she's local. I've also been to Jessica from the Latina Business Coach. She's been phenomenal. She's been on like Forbes and
really
all these amazing magazines. Yeah, she's phenomenal. Literally just spitting fire all the time. She's on Instagram. So I've kind of realized as business goes on, you have to learn from other people, right? And you have to listen to some podcasts and you have to do some things to not just better yourself, but also your business because you are part of your business. You are the drive. So yeah, kind of a long answer to your question.
Yeah. Have you always had an open mind like that to be willing and wanting to learn from other people and take others people's advice and help you grow?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am a lifelong learner. I love learning from other people. I love teaching other people. I think I'll always have that passion of teaching, which is why I'm so thankful for Studio 223 that lets me teach there because it's just 5 miles from my house and I don't have to go far and I could still teach and keep calligraphy, in my business. But yeah, I've always been very open. In fact, there are other businesses that do what I do and I've connected with them and it's been amazing because from Canada, California, New York, they reach out to me and say, hey Maria, do you know where you get your acrylic from or can you share this with me? And I'm always just an open book. So I love to share. I love to make people's life better. And here's the thing. A lot of people are like, well, that took you years to do, right? And yeah, that's true. It took me years to learn all this stuff. And I think I'm getting ready to create a PDF file where people could just download and read everything. And, if it's their journey, maybe they can go forward with it. And, but it's just been, it's been interesting to see how many connections I've made by just being so open and being willing to learn and teach other people what I've learned.
A couple follow-up questions. You mentioned that initially after you kind of got real, like, okay, I'm a small business owner. I've got this laser I need to produce, that you hired a marketing company.
Yes.
What was your search like to find the right company? Were they the right company? How do you know they're the right company? Mm-hmm. What impact did they have? Any suggestions to other entrepreneurs that are listening now that are kind of at that stage where, I need to look for somebody to help me market my business? Like, kind of walk us through a little more detail on how you hired that company and what impact it had.
Yeah. So once you like put your business out there on like Google, because I had downloaded the Google app, and then I had put in like some information about my business, and so now I was able to be, you know, looked for on Google. But I didn't. Being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, you literally wear all the hats. You're a photographer. You're a social media marketing person. You are the person that takes care of all your books. I mean, the list goes on, right? You're literally in charge of everything, and you're wearing all these hats. So for me, when I found the marketing company, Broadleaf at the time, I was just looking for someone that could put me on the first page of Google. And looking back, that wasn't the best choice because I needed way more engagement. You know, I needed more of my story to be told. And that, putting me on Google as one of the first people that pop up as a calligrapher, it actually was terrible because I was getting all these phone calls about, hey, can you do my invitations? And I'm like, no. Like, I don't do invitations. I had tried that when my kids were younger and it just didn't work. Ink was everywhere, you know, so that was a little bit of a mistake. I don't think Broadleaf was necessarily the mistake. I think it was just that the services they were providing at the time, and me having been so busy at the time, I wasn't really checking in with them as often. They had someone I could always call. She was phenomenal. Like, I'd call her, ask her a question, you know, she was great, and they had great customer service, but I don't think I knew what I wanted. I don't think, again, I was trying to figure out, like, what am I selling? When people come to my page, like, I didn't have these questions before. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm doing calligraphy and I'm laser cutting, you know?
Yeah.
So
Look, there I'm on Google. I'm
yeah,
famous.
yeah, how cool, right? But it was doing nothing for my business. So I definitely dumped a lot of money into very silly marketing techniques that didn't help at the time. And so what I'm doing now is really trying to market on Instagram more, telling my story more often, you know, taking part in podcasts like this when I get invited. I don't have anybody doing marketing right now. However, again, like I mentioned, I've taken lessons from life coaches and other people doing business. And so one of the things that I would advise somebody listening right now is, if you do want to build a clientele and you want to build your business, I would say emails, email campaigns, or just get yourself in people's emails, because one thing everybody does is check their email every day. Sometimes you don't open it, right? But you check your emails. You scroll through them.
Inbox, yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I've taught calligraphy, actually, when I get their emails to like send them information as to like where to get more pens and things like that, a lot of them don't have social media. So I've realized that as much as I love social media and I love to share my story there, there's also power in emails. Even though, yes, I know not everybody will open it, they still will keep seeing Deco Ink Designs, right? Just like you maybe see your Home Depot keep coming up because you're subscribed there or whatever, right? If you keep seeing this business is in business and you keep seeing that these emails are coming in, you're like, hey, okay, they're still in business, right? Yep. They say a consumer sees something they want 5 times before they buy it. Mm-hmm. Or I've heard something like that, you know? And so it's like, it's true, you know, if you keep seeing something, and the best way to get into people's head is through their emails, you know? Especially if they're not going to be on social media and things like that. So that's an advice that I've learned from another life coach, is to use emails. And so right now I'm not really paying for any marketing, although I think I'm going to try like the knot or the wedding wire, you know, because those are like more wedding focused, which is kind of where I'm gearing towards, kind of being a wedding vendor for the next few years, you know. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where I'm going to put, you know, my next investment for marketing. But for now, I'm just doing email campaigns and letting people know, hey, it's Maria, your local calligrapher, doing this and that. You know, my next class is so-and-so. And so just keeping people in the loop of things. I think that has definitely helped people come to my website more often and reach out, because they're like, oh, hey, I saw an email about Deco Ink doing this. I should check it back out, you know. And So anyways, that would be an advice.
Yeah, no, that's a good tip that we don't hear very often. So it's a good reminder that email can still be effective if you use it the right way. I've also noticed that you have quite a big Instagram following, though. Is there anything you've done in particular to grow your following so big, so fast?
So in 2018, when I left the bank and I went full time, I think I only had about 1,000 followers or so, which was huge, right? Yeah. Because like I was still small, and so the biggest change I've noticed as my Instagram connections have grown is I've taken more time in investing in people. So I've reached, I comment on people's posts and I ask questions, or I'm active on there, right? Yeah. And so people are getting to know who I am by me posting my own comments on their post, and so that has helped. The connections locally has helped, people locally tagging me on all their stuff, and the amount of followers they have helped me, oh, well, I like her, so because she's tagging her, I'm going to follow her. And so that has helped. But I think overall is just being completely open, sharing everything I know, the connections I've made. Honestly, people are power. People are what the connections you have with people are what's going to actually get you further. And so I think we've all heard it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so I think just being connected with like-minded women and men that are, all about the hustle and they want to get ahead, just like you guys, right? And so I was in another podcast actually for the Latina business coach, and she had me on her podcast asking me questions. And so I just getting involved with things, I think, has definitely helped that following. Yeah. But you know what? I wish I wasn't so caught up on the following when I first started, because I used to be. I used to be like, oh my gosh, I got another follower, right? And as much as I just said, people, connections are power. At the same time, that I realized is not always going to drive sales. It's not always going to equal profit. There could be, actually, this eye-opener was huge for me. So I went to a convention for the Universal Laser System they were hosting a kind of like learn more about the laser and our new, machines it was a partnership with Johnson's Plastic, which is another acrylic company that I buy acrylic from. And so I had gone to their convention. It was like a whole day long, and we were just learning things about the laser and how to do, things faster and things like that. And so I met these two women. They were making six figures. They were in their 4 years into their business. It was just on Etsy, but making six figures. And I was like, what? Like, how? I went and checked out their Instagram. They maybe had like 400 people following them. And at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, it really doesn't matter how many people are following you to be successful. Like, why are we so hung up on this number, right? So after I reached like 6,000, it was kind of like, whatever. I don't really care. And then we had, my husband at the time was handling my social media, and we had like a bunch of random people ask, do you want more followers? I don't know if anybody listening has had that experience. Yeah. But my husband, and not to put him on the spot, he's the type that like if someone calls and they're like, hey, we need your bank account number right now, he would give it to them. He's learned his lesson, but we've had to go through several. We've had to go through several of those, and I love you, babe, if you're listening. But like he had gone into a scam with, and so supposedly we were gonna get more engagement. He had paid these guys to do more engagement, and it had added followers to my account, but it was just kind of like, what? Like, where are these followers coming from? And so I went and checked them, and I went back to the guy, and I was like, I think at the time, I had also been on the news on Channel 3. And so that gave me a bunch of followers too. So I wasn't sure, like, where are these followers coming from? So long story short, I don't get fooled by those people who want, you know, money for more followers, because A, it's not going to equal profit, and B, the number of your Instagram following does not determine your success. So,
For sure.
So just remember that. And I ended up having to call those guys and like literally went back and forth and had to like talk to my bank to get the money back and then get all the followers removed, because it was just insane. Like, I'm like, no, I do not want this. This is so sketch. But you know, I don't know what happened, because then after that, I just started growing my following so much faster, and I got to like 10,000, and now I'm like at 11. But again, those numbers don't matter. So if anybody's out there just starting and you got like a small build up of followers, that does not determine your success or your profit.
Good. So you got on Channel 3. Did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you?
They actually reached out to one of my friends, who then reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to take on that job. And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great exposure. Even though people don't really watch the TV or the news anymore, but just having that, hey, I've been on Channel 3, having that clip and recording that you can use, that's excellent.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
I also want to touch on, and you mentioned it already, but just the balance of having a family and running a business, and how you're able to kind of balance that out with having, you know, such a busy and successful business now. How have you been able to balance that so far? What are some things that you're maybe still working on? What's just your advice to someone else, you know, who has a family and trying to balance their work life?
Gosh, guys, because I'm not an expert. Like I said, I'm a yes girl.
You're in the
and
trenches.
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm still in the trenches. Yeah. You know, they say at 5 years in business and you're good. Like you know, you've done it, right? And that's where the real profit starts, right? But I'm 4 years in, and to say that my husband first started, you know, when I first started doing calligraphy, my kids were young. I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband was at first like, what is this stupid business, right? He was not supportive. So if anybody's listening and someone has told you like your little business sucks or it's not doing anything, like especially from your own spouse, it's kind of like, that hurts, right? Because you have so much passion. To now, my husband being the most supportive person in the world with my business, it's been amazing, but a challenge too, because he has seen that my balance with all of this hasn't been the best. You know, in the beginning, I was all about the hustle. And then in 2019, when I had the biggest season, literally brought in the most money, I was sick that I couldn't even enjoy the fact that I was making more money, because I was literally sick, guys. Like, I was working myself to death. If anybody's listening, definitely time management is huge. Write down a schedule and stick with it. Like, if Sundays are your like no business, definitely letting people know, clear and simple, these are my hours. After these hours, like, if you don't appreciate your time and make it sacred and respect your time with your family or just your self-care, no one's going to respect it. So if you don't take care of yourself, no one will. Not even your spouse. No one will know how to take care of you, because you don't even know how to take care of yourself. So that's important. The letting people know exactly your business hours and being clear as to like when you're open, and also having a schedule and being good with time management. You know, and another thing that has helped is, I know people laugh at me when they go to dinner with me and they see that I have 2 phones, because when I got my Deco Ink phone, I thought in the future I'm going to be able to hand this over to an employee who could then handle social media. Yeah. And all my business pictures are in here. I'm not going to have to deal with, right? So when I got that phone 2.5 years ago, I thought, this is going to be great. But it actually has been great. I mean, it's hard to handle 2 phones, but that has helped me balance, because when I don't want to do business, I turn that phone off, right?
Just put it away.
I also, on my emails, I have an automatic email going out to everybody that emails me like, hey, these are our hours. Sorry, you couldn't reach us right away, but we'll get back to you. You know, so have that automation going on your emails. Make sure anybody that contacts you in any way that you have for them to contact you, make sure that it's automated, that people know your business hours. You can also update your business hours on Google. Guys, Google is amazing. You could actually post lots of pictures. You could update your whole business, and then Google can actually market for you too. So Google's been a great tool to balance my life as well. But I'd say your schedule, time management is huge. That has helped a lot. And there's still times, guys, I will say that I'm doing both. I'm doing mom and entrepreneur life where, I've got the kids in the living room because, again, I still work from home. My business is still at home. My laser's in an office, and all of my shipping stuff, my packaging stuff is in the garage. My spray paint, all the stuff I need is still at my house. So it's going to be bittersweet when I leave my house. But I think it's been a great balance so far because when I've had to do business, like someone needs a rush order and they're going to pay the rush fee. Hey, I'm going to get to work, right? But I'm still going to make my kids dinner and, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. Time management problems aren't really time management problems. Time management problems are commitment problems.
Yes.
Right? Time management problems are integrity problems where you've given your word and you're not keeping your word. So I love the fact that you've made a commitment to yourself, you made a commitment to your family, and because of that, you keep your word to those commitments. And now it's really easy to say no. It's really easy to say, I'm turning this phone off.
Yeah.
And you have the automatic responders. These are our hours, and we'll get back to you tomorrow. So
right.
I love that. I love the way that you've managed time around commitment and integrity.
Yes. That's awesome. I love how you put that into words. But you're right. It is a commitment because you're committing to, if you wrote it down, this is the time I'm going to do emails, right? And these are the times I'm going to take care of this. And after 5 p.m., I'm not, that's a huge commitment. And then it shows, right? And then you could be a lot better at your job. You go back the next day, you're happy because you're not so worn out from the day before of not like actually committing to what you said, the time management. And that's awesome. I think I'm going to take that.
You're welcome.
Just quote him next time.
Yes.
Right?
You're welcome. Now, you've hired a life coach twice.
Yep.
Love that. I'm a huge advocate of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're an athlete or a business owner, like everybody needs coaching.
Yes.
Okay. Because coaches see things that you're blind to.
Yes.
And no matter how good you are, coaching can make you just a little bit better, right?
Oh, yes.
Right? And so for those that have never had a coach, thinking that, I got this, I'm pretty good. You are pretty good. And a coach can take you to that next level. Could you just talk to us a little bit about how you sought out your coaches, what you were looking for in a coach, what that was like for you, how you knew that you had found the right coach to hire the right coach? Could you talk to us about that?
So the first coach, Annette De La Rosa, she's local in Scottsdale, Arizona. She is phenomenal, again, at, like you said, seeing what you don't see, right? When I found her Instagram, I was in the community of the Latinas in Arizona, right? And so I kind of heard about her. And then when I landed on her page and I was watching her Instagram stories and she was talking about balance, and every year I pick a word that I'm going to stick to for the rest of the year, right? And it was 2019 where I got really, really sick, right? So the beginning of 2020, I'm like, I need to figure this out, right? Like I need to like balance. I need balance before we even knew COVID was going to hit, right? But I seeked her out primarily because my word that year was balance, was simplify. How do I simplify my life so that I can enjoy every aspect of it without always being tired and fatigued and dealing with these illnesses? And so I was tired of being sick in 2019. I'm like, this is it. So I went to her for balance and I got just that. She, again, was very big on what you just said, the time management, the commitment, like doing what you said you were going to do. The passion was definitely there, right? But it was just like, what, like this. So we did time block. So she taught me how to, block out time for specific things. I'm going to turn off my phone. It doesn't matter if an email comes in, I'm going to turn off my phone during the time that I have production. So all I'm doing is producing items, right? And products. And so maybe in 2 hours, then I could check my email and do 30 minutes of email. And so time block was huge for me. And then she also kind of takes you through, her life coach is very, very, very insightful, because before she even starts with like why you're even there, she takes you through your past. And so you kind of talk through life experiences that have brought you where you are right today, but were never talked about and were never dealt with. And so that was awesome, because it was like, oh, I talked about them, I could let it go, you know? And so it was just a great experience. So again, I seeked her for balance. I got that and more. And then with my second life coach, it was the beginning of this year, actually, 2021. She was hosting a How to Make Six Figures as a Latina, right? And I was like, hey, I'm a Latina, I'm an entrepreneur, you know, I want to make six figures, right? I want to, that dream of like getting my parents out of that paycheck to paycheck, that's still there, you know? And so I still want to give back to my parents, everything that they did, from crossing the border illegally and like risking their lives and our lives and like going through this country, you know, working hard, paying all the bills, paying their taxes, you know, just being good citizens, like, and not being able to retire like the normal American would, you know, they're still working their butts off. It's like, I still want to give that back. So I'm like, hey, I want to make six figures. So I signed up for her class in the beginning of this year, and she's actually hosting one right now that I couldn't take part in, but I primarily seeked her out for for wanting more. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by more is, I don't mean more money, right? I just mean more opportunity that money brings, because how can I then bless others through that blessing? And so that's really what I wanted. And so she taught me a lot as well. And then, you know, who's my next life coach? I'm always looking. So I know there's going to be more life coaches that it may be the same ones I've had, maybe other ones, but there's so much lessons to be learned from each other. And that's just my favorite thing, is that connection. So we'll see what happens and what my next, you know, goal is, or my next year's word is, that's going to lead me to my next life coach, right? Yeah, so.
Awesome. One more thing that I wanted to touch on before we get closing up here is going back to something that we talked about with your initial story of getting started, is the investment that happened, because that's a big thing that stops a lot of, you know, entrepreneurs and stops a lot of dreams from getting started, is the ability to fund it. And we forget that family and friends is really the first place that we're supposed to kind of look to see if that's an option. Right. And so you had that opportunity. So I just kind of want to, you know, quickly, if you could kind of tell us what that was like, if there were any terms, or if it was just because it was your husband who just gave you the money, and if it was a lot of pressure that came with it coming from family. Just tell us about kind of the experience of getting that investment, and if you suggest going that route for a business owner that needs funding to get started.
Great question. So the passion's always been there for me. My passion's always been there. So it actually came to a point where when I found out how much it was and I had to tell my husband, and he was like, oh, I went and seeked out to get a loan. Mm-hmm. And I was approved, and I was going to do the loan. But having that, my husband wanted to so badly invest and give back to me from the years that he didn't believe in me, right? He, you know, I had to allow him to gift me that, but also I told him it wasn't a gift. He keeps telling me it's a gift, but I keep paying him back. And so it's definitely an agreement that I have on my own, because he's like, no, stop, gotcha. You know, but there is an account that I pay to, and I'm hoping to build up to that 23,000 and be able to, like, hey, here's your 23,000, go buy yourself a new car, you know? And so I hope to be able to do that. You know, he keeps saying not to pay him back, but there is an account that money is going to that I eventually hope I can get to that 23,000 fast, to be able to bless him back. But if you are struggling with finances, or you know exactly what you need, you know exactly how much money you need, right, to get started, go get it. Like, go get a loan. If the passion is there, that investment you make, whether it's a loan or you are having to work extra jobs to make that investment, it's going to pay off definitely in the long run, because your passion's there. So your commitment's there, right? And so you're going to get it back. It's going to come back. It may not come back right away within a year, or who knows, maybe you will, you know, because you've just you've listened to podcasts, you've taken lessons from other people, and you're on top of it, right? And so maybe you are going to make it back in a year, but I'd say don't let finances stop you. Go. If the passion's there and you know nothing's going to stop you, do it. Because I was going to do it, I would have done it. But, and again, right now I'm actually in a transitional phase in my business where I love being home for the convenience of being with my kids and being there for bedtime, because there's nights where I do work long nights because I don't get started till later, because in the morning I have to maybe take care of my self-care, right? And so sometimes balancing that out. So it's nice, on the nights where I decide, okay, tonight I'm just going to work tonight instead of working in the morning. And so it's nice to be there at bedtime, but I'm transitioning to where I need a building. Like, it's become very apparent. I've taken over an entire office at my house. I'm taking over my entire garage now. We both park outside. And now I'm taking over part of my backyard. So it's very apparent, right, that I need a building. And so I'm actually getting ready to apply for another loan and get out of my house and get in a building and hire more employees. So it is very risky, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I don't have the money to do this. But again, from what I've seen, from doing what I've done and having my husband invest that and being able to see that I'm slowly paying him back and I'm making profit and I'm making a difference and I have a platform and I can give back, that like, I know that this next loan is going to just do that and more. So, what am I worried about? So YOLO, right?
Right. Nope. You're a creator. You went from that side hustle to becoming a solopreneur, and now like the next phase, like you'll be super successful. You're a creator.
Thank you.
You're inspired. You'll do great.
I need those vibes.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you back on in a year or so and follow up and see what business is like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome. Well, we have really enjoyed having you on today and all the advice that you've shared with us. It's really been awesome. Before we close up, we've got a quick little game that we're going to play with you.
Okay.
So how it's going to work is we have a list of 20 questions that we're going to ask,
okay.
and you have a minute to answer as many of them as you can.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we'll see how you square up against previous guests we've had.
I'm not so good, but okay. I'm not the best when I'm put on the spot and I don't know what's going on. So if I fail terribly, just know I'm not good under pressure.
No worries. All right, you want to start us off in 3, 2, 1.
Your dream vacation.
So many places to go. Bali.
First thing you'd buy if you won $1 million.
A house for my parents.
Your favorite hobby.
Calligraphy.
If there was an Olympic competition for everyday activities, what activity would you have a good chance at winning a medal in?
Calligraphy.
The song you've been jamming to lately.
Oh my gosh, Anthony Ramos. I don't think you can love me right now. I think it says right now. Right now is the song.
Okay. If you lived to be 100, would you rather have the mind or the body of your prime self?
The mind.
Your favorite holiday.
Christmas.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh, Biscoff cookie.
Favorite fictional character.
This one's hard. Iron Man.
Favorite smell?
Roses.
What's your nickname?
Muddy Chewy.
Ooh, there we go.
Naughty Chewy. Biscoff ice cream. I haven't heard that one. That sounds delicious.
Oh, I've had it.
I've had it too. I mean, I've never heard anybody say
you've
it's
never
their
heard anyone
favorite.
say it. Yeah, no, it's underrated, but good choice.
Oh, that's funny. You guys made me say my nickname. Because I was born on Christmas, so my real name, it's no longer on my social security number anymore because it was, long story short, I'm now just Maria Bernard, but I was born on Christmas, so my mom and dad named me Maria of Jesus.
Oh, really?
So, Maria de Jesus. And so they would call me Mari Chuy growing up because Chuy is short for Jesus. So, anyways, that was it? That was good?
So
okay,
you got 13 questions. All right.
Wow.
Good. Not bad.
That was hard to think of real quick. And then I love so many superheroes. I'm like, which one?
Right? Yeah, they're tricky. We'll tell our listeners where they can connect with you or find out more about you if they want to look at your work, come in for a class, or just learn more about you and your business.
Absolutely. So everything that we do, whether it's teach calligraphy, wedding packages, or actually laser cut signs, or DIY-able acrylic sheets. All can be found on my website on www.decoinkdesigns.com. There's also an Etsy. You can look for me there as well, but it's also all under Instagram. If you go to Deco Ink Designs on Instagram, there's like a little link there, and it'll take you to all the places that you can reach me. Email always works best. I always tell people when they DM me or they text me because they have my number, I'm like, can you email me, please? And I say this not to be rude, but that's how I balance myself, right? Because guess what? You text me or you DM me, if I'm in the middle of something, you know how I'm that type of person where I can't have like an alert. I cannot have an alert. If I have an alert, I gotta look at it and what it is. And sometimes I'm in the middle of something. I'm in the middle of cooking. I'm in the middle with my kids. I'm in the middle of working. And I don't realize like, oh, I read it and I knew, but like, I don't go back to it. With email, if I'm in the middle of something and I read an email, I can mark it as unread and come back to it because my email will always alert me that I have an email as unread, right? Versus Instagram, if you have a business account and you mark a message, a DM, as unread, it doesn't alert you. It doesn't say you have a message still left unread. And if it does, you have to scroll all the way down, right, through all those people that have been commenting. And so anyways, I thought I'd bring that up because it's like, yeah, you need to email me, guys. It's best. But yeah, and then there's a 10% discount that you get for being like a first time buyer on our website if you're shopping for like a nursery laser cut name. There's also a 10% off for any Etsy items, and the Etsy items are for any calligraphers out there that like don't have a laser but like want to do cool stuff with acrylic, and they can buy like acrylic sheets on there and like write on them, or it's for that perfect bride that wants to DIY everything and stay small on the sign budget, and they can just buy all the like place cards, the menus, the table numbers, and write on them and DIY them and paint them, have fun with it. And it's also for anybody that wants to be creative. So yeah.
Awesome. And how can they get that 10%?
So the 10% is actually on my Instagram. It'll have a code there for you to use.
Awesome.
If you just go to my Instagram, it'll be there for you to get the code.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Maria, thanks again so much for coming on. We really enjoyed you.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. Just a few things before we go. First off, if you or someone you know is an entrepreneur in the East Valley, we'd love to have you on the show. Please get in touch with us by emailing us at localhustlerspodcast@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at localhustlerspodcast. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for the latest news and updates. Also, if you enjoyed the show, please take a few seconds to rate and review and hit that subscribe button. It lets us know how we're doing, it helps us grow so we can reach more locals, entrepreneurs, and help small businesses grow. Thanks, guys.